What do you say, everybody? It's time for Monday Night Quarterback. We do it right here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. And for those of you that are listening to the podcast, we appreciate that as well. 5-star rating if you're listening to the podcast. Do what's right. Tell your friends about it. Invite them on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. As soon as this show's over, we'll have it loaded there. And, of course, you could watch the replay right here on the Alabama Rivals YouTube channel, Bama Insider and BamaInsider.com, your place to get all the latest breaking news on the Crimson Tide, including recruiting, football, basketball. We got a lot to talk about tonight. Monday Night Quarterback. Let me introduce our cast of characters. We start with the beat writer at BamaInsider.com, Mr. Tony Tsoukalas. Woo!
Yeah, how's it going?
Then we got Mr. Trey Yanity. Woo! All right, look, let's get into this, guys. I mean, there's so much to talk about tonight, and before we really move any further towards this discussion, give us a thumbs up as you watch. Thumbs up, subscribe to our channel. We're over 50,000, which really is amazing. I mean, it really is phenomenal. And now we have our sight set on 100,000 subscribers. You guys make this channel what it is. Wherever you might be watching, roll tide to you. All right, let's get into this now. Rush Propst. Let me give you guys a background on the guy in this picture here. He's got the tan blazer on. Many of you watching remember this guy. You know who I'm talking about. This is the guy who started Hoover football in the dynasty that's still going right now in the Birmingham area. He was the head coach of Hoover. He's a great football coach. He started that Wildcat. At least I'm guessing that's where it started. It's the first time I ever saw the Wildcat offense was at Hoover High School. Rush Propst. You had guys like John Parker Wilson that played there, Ross Wilson, and a bunch of other players that went to Alabama and other big schools that played high school football as that guy as their head coach. And MTV, the music television channel, did this television show that was filmed at Hoover High School. Rush Propst was the coach. Jeremy Pruitt was the defensive coordinator. He was just the head coach at Tennessee. I mean, so you're talking about, some really amazing high school coaching. And they won the state championship. And they followed him for a couple years. And then, when it looked like Rush Propst might make the jump to college or, who knew what was going to happen next for him. It came out that he had not one family, but two families. And that was crazy. And then he left Alabama and he went to, I thought it was like Moultrie, Georgia. And won state championships there. And then eventually things didn't work out there, and he went to Valdosta, Georgia, won championships there. He's in trouble right now for some stuff, and these audio tapes leaked of a private conversation where he's talking. Many of you guys watching have probably already heard him. You can go Google him and listen. But he basically says that, Kirby Smart, Nick Saban, other coaches are paying players. He talks about the money that's involved, $100,000. He also said when he was at Hoover that there was drug money for high school players, basically, that they would catch on the interstate and then funnel the money over. Who knows if this stuff's true or not? It's very interesting, Tony, because you start to get into a lot of different areas when you talk about money being transferred. We just saw this with the way that the FBI hit college basketball. And then, this is police departments that this guy's talking about. He didn't know he was being recorded, obviously, and some of the biggest athletic departments in the country as far as football is concerned.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if this stuff was true, it'd be pretty detrimental for Alabama and Georgia. We'll have to see. I'm sure, both Alabama and Georgia are aware of these remarks, and I think that they're having people look into it. But, just some juicy stuff, like you said there, Mick. I think I was reading an article that said that apparently, according to Rush, that Nick Chubb was paid $180,000 by Georgia in $60,000 increments, and so some pretty scandalous stuff from both the Alabama and Georgia perspective. But until you get more information, you really can't really can't say too much about it. I think, these things kind of pop up with big programs, and sometimes they're true and sometimes they're just absolutely not. So um, it's interesting, but I think you got to wait until more facts come out.
Trey, sometimes you get around your buddies and you talk about how good that high school football game was, maybe when you were back in the day. And if you've ever hung out with Kyle Henderson and he starts talking about his high school days, and all the touchdowns that he caught and stuff, and it goes from 1 to 3. No, I'm just kidding. We exaggerate a little bit. Do you think that there's some exaggeration in this, maybe?
Yeah, and before I get into my answer here, I've seen the Kyle Henderson tape. It's pretty elite. I'm not going to lie. That maybe not as exaggerated as some other tapes here, but I think exaggeration does come into play. And I think people in these roles sometimes they do have a little bit more power. People do listen to what they say. You hear conversations go on all the time. People talking about, oh well, every school plays players. Every school is violating NCAA rules and doing things they're not allowed to get players to come to their school. And, that conversation's all fine and good, but you don't take it as seriously as when it comes out of somebody like this guy's mouth. And he didn't know he was on tape, which adds another layer. He wasn't saying this just to, because he was angry at somebody or he wanted to ruin somebody's career or anything like that. This was a wire here. So he didn't necessarily know that people were going to hear this and this was going to get out. I think it is exaggerated, though. I think that every program handles things differently, and the NCAA gives programs leeway here and there to figure things out, with their scholarship situation and everything else. I'm not making any assumptions about any of these programs, but if what he's saying is true, it is a very serious thing. And, the NCAA will need to take measures to make sure that the violations are taken care of here and justice is served, I guess. But, I do think that the credibility, like we got Mick Connick in the comment section already here. How much credibility at this point? I mean, this is a dude that has had some credibility issues in the past with some of the stuff that's gone down. So it's a very serious and disturbing thing to hear that your school may be cheating or, your school may be doing this or that to get an advantage, because you and I both know how much this program puts into football, how much these coaches and recruiters go out the job they do to get these kids to come here. It's a lot of it's all natural, and they work so hard to get these kids here. It makes you, kind of scratch your head when you hear somebody come out and say, no, that's all fake. They're just paying these kids to come to school and whatever else. I think some of it might have truth behind it. We don't know. But regardless, there's definitely a question about the credibility of, Mr. Rush here making the statements.
And it's hard to prove it, too. I mean, like you said, you can go out and he may be telling the truth. Absolutely. I mean, everything he's saying could be true, but then it's another thing to go out and prove it. And it's a shame to see someone that has had such an iconic high school football coaching career, and he may be the most famous high school football coach in America. I mean, there's not many high school football coaches who have had a television show on MTV and have won state titles like he has. There was a picture of him that we were looking at before the show, and he's sitting at his desk at Hoover, and he's just got all these state championships, piled on top of each other. And then he went to Moultrie and he did the same thing, and he's at Valdosta and he's doing the same thing there. But I'm sure that there's a lot of regret right now with him having been, obviously recorded talking without his knowledge, if that's what happened. And I mean, it certainly appears that way, because, he's going to make a lot of enemies for himself, at the same time. But it was interesting. It was definitely something worth talking about. I watched all the two-a-days broadcasted baseball with the Crimson Tide Sports Network when Ross Wilson was one of the players on the team. And I felt like of all the guys I ever broadcast in any of the leagues I've ever been in, that Ross probably had the worst strike zone that I've ever seen. And I felt like it was because there was a bias that he was on that show. I just felt like he was kind of a different type of celebrity as a college player. And sometimes I felt like the strike zone was a lot bigger for him. Bigger. I mean, like they were caught a lot more strikes on him than maybe the other guys. But I just thought that was interesting and something that, we'll have to keep an eye on as we move forward. Hey, as you guys hang out with us tonight, thumbs up, subscribe. We appreciate you being here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. We're going to talk Alabama athletics every Monday night, and that's why we call this Monday Night Quarterback. But how about Monday Night Point Guard? Or how about Monday Night Center or Forward? Because we're going to talk some basketball right now, and it's because Alabama, Nate Oates, this SEC championship team has forced us to talk hoops. And all of you guys right now are probably with us where you're going, okay, we're a basketball school now. Look, this time of year, we really don't have much to talk about. We might have done a whole show on Rush Probst, but you know what? There's a lot going.
Well, it looks like we might have lost Mick here for a second. But like Mick's saying, this is an interesting time of the year, and it's super fun right now because we do have a very good basketball team on campus. They're set to be the number 1 seed in the SEC tournament. We're going to try to get Mick back here in just a second. But Tony, as we talk about this team as they get set for the SEC tournament, who prevents the biggest challenge for this squad? I guess as we talk about that first round matchup, the two schools that are potentially going to be taking on Alabama, which one do you think poses a bigger threat? It looks like we have Mick back in the feed here.
Yeah. Well, I'll answer that question while Mick gets set up. I think it's got to be Kentucky, right? They're a hot team. Look, Alabama probably, if you look at it, you try to be good. You try to get this number 1 seed so you can avoid a Kentucky, at this point in the tournament. Turns out it's a weird year where Kentucky's down and Alabama's up, and they end up playing Kentucky again. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily the team that Nate Oates is going to, want to play. Obviously, they would have the advantage of being fresh, while Kentucky will have to beat Mississippi State on Thursday. I think when you're looking at potential matchups, too, I mean, look, speaking of teams that are super hot right now, this Arkansas team, they beat Alabama on the road. I think that'd be a great matchup in the final if that was the way it was going to play out. And that could be a tough one for Alabama as well. But I think really just for Alabama, it's playing their game and kind of playing up to their level. I think it sounds so cliche when you have a number 1 seed or a team that's doing really well, but Alabama needs to avoid beating itself and really just kind of avoid coming out flat and really just rising to the occasion. Because if Alabama can do that, I think they can beat anyone in the SEC, Kentucky, Arkansas, LSU, Florida, it won't matter. So it's really just about Alabama getting back to their style of play. When we saw them on that big run earlier this year, if they can get back to that level, I think they can go up against anybody in the nation.
All right, I'm back, guys. I don't know what happened there. Well, look, we've got Alabama playing at 11 a.m. on Friday, and they haven't had a lot of success, kind of like you, Trey. Like they've had a late night out, and then 11 a.m. seems to be early for this team. Do you think that's going to be a factor in Nashville on Friday?
I think it is. And, usually I would disagree. I would think the athletes, would maybe like getting up in the morning and, coming out, getting it out of the way, getting the stress knocked out. But this team's different. This team loves the night games. They love the lead up. They love, even the later they play, it looks like the better they play. I'd say that LSU game was their best performance of the season. That was a 9 p.m. tip. So for some reason, whatever reason, this team just doesn't really like playing in the afternoon, playing in the morning. We've seen them really struggle. They went to Oklahoma, lost at 11 a.m. The next week, they went to Missouri, lost at 11 a.m. Not having to go on the road this time. It's a neutral site, so it'll be a little bit different. But I do think it poses a little bit of a challenge here. And like Tony's saying, are they going to get up? Which Alabama team are we going to see? I think this team, when it comes to postseason basketball, is going to have a bit of a different mentality. And, thankfully, for as little experience as a lot of these players do have in postseason play, considering we didn't have an SEC tournament last year, didn't make the NCAA tournament the year before that, Nate Oates has a good bit of tournament experience and postseason experience in general. So I think, he's got his finger on every aspect of this program, but I think he's really going to figure out a way to motivate these guys and continue to change their mindset and evolve their mindsets to now, we don't just got to win games, got to get our winning percentage up, take better shots, this, that, whatever. We got to fight for our lives because Alabama, potentially has 9 games left. If they go 9-0, they're national champions. And I think you just have to pitch it like that and figure out a way to say, maybe not even think down the road, think about this game. And this is life or death. This is your season on the line. And, it's probably going to be Kentucky, a team that in most seasons would be a huge favorite in Alabama. So just settle it down. I think wipe off the nerves. But 11 a.m. could be a little bit different. This squad struggled with it for sure.
Going to be a packed gym too. Well, maybe not packed, but packed full of Kentucky fans. If you've ever been to the SEC tournament, I mean, there's a ton of them there. So I'm guessing 80% will be Kentucky fans, and I'm guessing that they're going to beat Mississippi State. I know Kentucky hasn't had a great season, but they're the type of team with all the talent that they have that I feel like could definitely make a run. And for Alabama, that's going to be a very tough test, that first game going in. Now, why is that game so important? Because, guys, I really feel like Alabama still has a shot at a number 1 seed, something that has never happened in the history of Alabama basketball. Twice they've been a number 2 seed, but they've never been a number 1 seed. They have to win the tournament, and then it just depends on how the cards fall from there, as far as I feel. How about you, Tony? Do you think that they have a chance to be a number 1?
It's tough because if you're the regular season SEC champ and the tournament SEC champ, then you would think that, you'd have that decent chance at a number 1. And I know that there's some statistic out there. I don't have it on hand, but normally that's the case. It's just, I think Alabama's been kind of hurt by Illinois' success. I think that's one of the things, like, I think Alabama would have wanted Illinois to kind of to not have their recent run that they've been on, because now it's really kind of hard. You got to think one of those number 1 seeds is going to Gonzaga. One of them is going to Baylor. One of them is probably going to Michigan, and then Illinois probably at this moment right now probably has a better case than Alabama does. Now, if something happens in the Big Ten tournament and, maybe Illinois loses. And I think part of it too is if things play out for Alabama, and let's say that they're able to beat a Kentucky and then, advance to the final and then beat, a top 10 Arkansas team, I think that could go a long way. So I don't know. Part of me doesn't want to rule them out for that number 1 seed, just because it's tough not to give a regular season and tournament champion from the SEC that number 1 seed. Oh, we'll just have to see. Alabama would have a strong case. Ultimately, I see them as a number 2 seed. And really, Mick, I see them as a number 2 seed regardless of anything that happens in this tournament. If they lose in the first round, I still see them as a number 2 seed. If they win 1 game, I see them at that number 2 slot, which is not bad. I mean, I think anybody would take that spot. So, not totally ruling it out, but I would definitely lean heavily to the number 2 seed instead.
I've talked about Kentucky being a tough, first game, and we don't even know if Alabama's going to play Kentucky. I mean, I'm just assuming, right? Who do you think would be the toughest challenge for Alabama in this tournament, Trey?
NCAA or SEC, you're saying?
SEC.
SEC. Really, it's I would, if I had to pick one team, I would say Tennessee, just because they're so big, so much bigger, so much longer, and they look pretty bad against Alabama this year, but they can get up and down the floor at times. They really didn't look good in that game, turned it over a ton. I'd say Tennessee still, just because they have the most talent on their roster, but any of these teams can beat Alabama. On the other side of that coin, Alabama could beat any of these teams by 30 points. You saw them absolutely dominate Arkansas, just rip them apart. They're up by 35, up close to 40 at one point in that game, ended up winning the game by 30. They go on the road the next time and lose to that team. So, this team is so weird, and they're so contingent on the 3-point ball going down early in the game, not just going down, but going down early in the game to set the tone. That's kind of determined a lot of games for this team this season. Saturday was a little bit different against Georgia. They struggled early. They turned it over. They found a way to kind of rally and, take back a second half lead and win that game. But I think in this tournament and in the NCAA tournament, they're going to need to get out and set the tone early, control the rhythm with the 3-ball, and then, your defense is going to come into play. You're still top 10 in defensive efficiency. You're still playing pretty well in transition. All you have to do is figure out a way to just control the rhythm of the game. I think they'll beat anybody doing that. But if there's one team, I'd say it's Tennessee. This team is really good, and they're really deep, just like Alabama.
Tennessee was picked to win the SEC, and obviously they haven't had that type of season, but they certainly have some horses over there, some guys that can really play basketball. What about Arkansas, Tony? I mean, wouldn't you think Arkansas, as hot as they've been? I mean, no one's been hotter than Arkansas right now.
That's the pick for me. Look, they're a top 10 team now for a reason. They're, you talk about Kentucky being hot. Arkansas is hot, and they're kind of a buzzsaw right now. I don't think I'd want to play them, if I was anybody in the conference. But the one thing I'll say about that Arkansas matchup is, I think you would get a very motivated Alabama team for that game. I don't think that they liked the way that game played out, whether it be through the officials. I think there was a lot of, tempers flaring in that game. So I think that might actually bring out the best in Alabama. And obviously at that point in the tournament, it would have to be for the championship. So I actually kind of like Alabama in that particular matchup. But yeah, I mean, if you're going just on like form, I think you have to go Arkansas as the toughest team. In fact, if I was doing, I know Alabama's the number 1 seed, but if I was doing like a power rankings of the SEC basketball, you got to give Arkansas number 1 at the moment. It's just a power rankings for now.
Oh, you mean like weekly?
Yeah. If I was just doing like a power rankings, like as what they're playing with right now, like where they are, you throw records out the window.
The hottest team. Yeah, there's no doubt. This is the hottest team, really one of the hottest teams in college basketball right now. But I think you're right too. I think Alabama's motivated because they're frustrated with that performance at Arkansas, like Arkansas was with Alabama when they came, up to Fayetteville last week. I think they're really hot, but I think I think it's not a bad matchup for Alabama, especially if it was in the title game. I kind of like that. But as far as seeding goes, I'm with you, Tony. I think if they win that first round game, whether it's Kentucky or not, that locks them into the 2 seed there. I think if they lose that, could be in question. Maybe they slide to 3, but I think they're pretty much locked into 2. I don't think 1 is attainable at this point.
I don't even think that they would move out of the 2 if they lost to Kentucky.
Really?
I think people would just kind of chalk that up to, look, if they lose to Mississippi State or Kentucky, it will be their 3rd time playing those 2 teams. It's hard to beat a team 3 times. I think the committee could look at that as well. And then Alabama is kind of like in that group as a 2 seed. I mean, look, I think Alabama might drop among the 2 seeds at that point, but I don't see them dropping off the 2 level. They might not be the highest rated 2 seed, which I think they're very much contention to be the highest rated number 2 seed.
Certainly, yeah.
So you guys kind of feel like Alabama's a 2 seed no matter what.
I do. I think there's an outside chance, like I said, just because of history, but it's going to be tough. I think they needed some things to play out differently. I think with Illinois being good, I think that makes it a lot more difficult. It's not out of the total realm of possibility, though, but if I'm betting my money, it's on number 2 seed.
Some things definitely have to happen. I mean, it's going to take a collapse with one of the 4 teams in contention right now. Illinois just has too many quality wins. I think Bama and Illinois have had relatively similar seasons with the highs and lows. Bama's been a little bit more consistent, but Illinois' big wins are really impressive. They went to Duke to start the year and got a win there, and they just beat Ohio State on the road, and they played pretty good basketball. I think it would be hard, but it's really not. I mean, if they win the SEC. They've been high on Bama all year. This is a team that lost a game. They split a week and still didn't fall out of the top 10. So, who knows? But I'm with Tony. I think it's probably a 2 seed.
They love Nate Oates. Hopefully Alabama wins the SEC and we get to find out, because I think if they win the SEC, they're going to be a number 1 seed for the first time in school history. Now, if they are a number 2 seed, it'll be the 3rd time Wimp Sanderson and Mark Godfrey did it. So it'd be the 3rd time that it's happened. And, it's been a long time since Bama was a basketball champ. They did that this year. And now it looks like at least they're going to be a number 2 seed, possibly a number 1. And they're going to try to win the SEC tournament, which is something that hasn't happened in a long time. All right, quickly before we get into football, it looks like the women's basketball team is going to make the tournament. Congratulations to Christy Curry and her squad. First time in this decade, right? This century, really. It's been a long time, since 2000 or something. I mean, so I've seen them put as maybe a 6 seed. So they finished the conference schedule 500. They played a week non-conference schedule, and that's a good idea. I mean, when you haven't been to the tournament in a while. But you know what? You get to the SEC in women's basketball, unlike men's basketball, women's basketball in the SEC is one of the best conferences every single year. So South Carolina won the tournament. Bama won the first game and then lost the second game, and they lost to South Carolina. And looks like they're going to play in the tournament. So, Trey, I know you're a big women's basketball follower. You got to be excited about seeing Bama in the women's tournament.
Oh, it is a great time to be an Alabama Crimson Tide women's basketball fan. It's never a bad time, but right now especially, I mean, this team is, they're doing things they haven't done in a while. Like you said, this team has not been dancing in quite some time. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that if they had not made the tournament, maybe they have a coaching regime change, everything else. So this win was so important for so many people, to at least win one game in the SEC tournament and pretty much secure yourself a bid to the NCAA. And it's really a product of what this group has done. It's very old. There are a lot of seniors on this team, a lot of experienced players that have come really close, like last season, year before that, and didn't make the tournament. So you feel good for them as well. I don't know, exactly how this team will fare in the NCAA tournament. I don't follow women's basketball nationally as well as I do men's basketball, but there's some really good teams at the top this year. It's going to be hard to compete. Thankfully, Alabama just played one of those teams and they didn't look that bad. They played South Carolina on Friday afternoon, I believe. And they did look really bad in the beginning. They were down 26-6 at the end of the first quarter. We're just getting dominated. They were down by 27 at one point. Came all the way back, made it a 7-point game with about 5 minutes to go. Hung in there, lost by 12. So that gives you confidence moving forward. That makes you think this is a brand name, South Carolina. This is a really good team. Played them in South Carolina, not at the university, but in the state. And, you hung in there and you looked all right. I think they're going to be a 7 seed. They're going to probably play somewhere, mid-major somewhere in that 10 seed range. And, the sky's the limit for this team. They have decent size down low in Ariah Cooper, solid shooters in Jasmine Walker and Jordan Lewis. And, they're rolling right now. So sky's the limit, but just great to see them get to the tournament, if nothing else.
I'm not a huge women's basketball follower, but I did look up the ESPN bracket, and Alabama is projected as a number 6 seed against Wake Forest.
That'd be interesting. Yeah, so it's been a while, since they have been in the tournament. And, what's cool is that, women's basketball is kind of following in line now with the rest of the women's sports at the capstone. And Tony, you're the one that brought that up. I mean, Alabama fans, they support a winner. That hasn't been women's basketball, but it's been softball. And if you go to a softball game, I mean, they're fun. And gymnastics might be the best live event besides football on campus.
It's definitely fun. Softball's fun to go to. It's going to be everything's going to be a lot more fun once the COVID restrictions pass. But the gymnastics games they're pretty electric. They fill out the Coleman Coliseum, and the softball games. I enjoy the softball games. I think it's fast flowing. I think that sport's really fun. In general. Alabama's got a ton of great sports. I mean, I think they're undefeated against Auburn this year, which is kind of crazy in all sports. I don't think it's going to last, just because there's some sports like baseball. It's super hard to get a sweep in baseball, but they'll keep it up as long as they can. And they're going to have a super impressive record against Auburn either way at the end of the year.
I'll take beating Auburn in football.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. But it's cool though. I mean, watching this possible all sports sweep of Auburn would be amazing. I saw somebody posted that it was like the first time that Alabama has won all these sports against Auburn in like years, right? So I mean, you're talking about football, swept them in basketball. What are the other sports involved?
I think that I think you're probably referring to the AL.com report, and I'd have to go look it up. But it was that the first time they swept them in football, basketball, or men's basketball and women's basketball all in the same year. And I think it's really honestly kind of, or maybe gymnastics was thrown in there too. I don't know.
I think they got them in soccer too, and even volleyball. It was like everything they could have beat it in.
Well, that's great. I love that. Look, nothing makes me happier than seeing, and I know I'm supposed to say Alabama and not us, but I love that. That makes my day. All right, look, let's get back to focus here, and we'll get into instead of gloating about beating Auburn, the Lee County team. Let's focus on what the job at hand is, guys. But first, for all of you that are hanging out with us tonight, thumbs up and subscribe as you hang out on the Alabama rival site, BamaInsider, the YouTube channel, or if you're listening, then you've downloaded our podcast, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. If you like Alabama winning against Auburn in every sport, give us a 5-star rating. All right, guys, look, Bama has a couple guys that are going in the draft that are going to be potentially superstar wide receivers, right? They have the chance of we had Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs last year, right? This year we got the Heisman Trophy winner Devontae Smith, and we got another guy named Jalen Waddle that could both be first-round receiver picks. And they've been asked, which is really a tough question to ask, but they've been asked it. Who did they like playing with better? Who was the better quarterback? Was it Tua or was it Mac 10? And both guys now, first Smitty and then Waddle last week, said that it was Mac. Pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, look, that's a big praise for Mac because obviously we've seen what Tua can do, and to be honest with you, I'm not sure I disagree, but let's break this down a little bit. Tua just signed a very lucrative deal, doesn't need the money anymore. Then you've got two guys that know that they want to maybe help out their buddy who's looking to be drafted as high as possible. I think that maybe it makes more sense to kind of big up Mac. And help him get that money as well. I don't think Tua's taken any of this to heart. Maybe he understands too. And look, Tua himself, he said he compared Mac to Tom Brady. So look, Mac's getting all the hype. He is well deserved. He had a hell of a year, probably one of the best years of quarterback. Him and Burrow, really best years a quarterback's had at the college level. But I do think that some of this is to kind of maybe help out Mac's draft status and. Hey, whatever they can do to make that work for Mac because he deserves it.
All right, Trey, you got to jump in on this.
Yeah, I think there's a few reasons they went this route when they're talking to reporters. And Tony's, what he's saying is the first one. I think they're looking out for Mac and their boy. I think the second one, and I won't get academic here, but it's a term, recency bias. I think that, these players were just catching passes from Mac Jones. They were just winning a national title with Mac Jones. He was their quarterback through this whole crazy COVID season. Everything else. And, some of it too, I think, is the fact that he didn't win the Heisman and he hasn't gotten the respect. He, is the manager material, everything else. He's never truly gotten the credit he deserves. And it's coming now. It's people are starting to realize nationally, and these NFL experts, NFL teams are starting to realize truly what Mac Jones is. But for a while, that hasn't been the case. I think Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, these guys are looking out for the kids saying, hey, you know what? Tua and Mac Jones are both incredibly talented, but everybody knows how good Tua is. Everybody knows he is one of the best quarterbacks to ever come through Alabama. People don't necessarily know that was Mac Jones as well. And, they're giving him the credit now that he deserves. I love to see it. I thought it was hilarious. If I'm a player, I'm maybe just going the PR route and saying, well, they both throw really nice passes in a different way. But it was entertaining to see him come out and say, no, it was Mac. It was definitely Mac.
All right, now it's time for you guys to be asked that same question, and I want the response. Mac or Tua? Tony?
I mean, come on. I've been on the Mac train the whole time. I'm not hopping off now, Mick. I'll go Mac. I think he had a better season. He won a title more on his own than Tua did. And look, I think if the question is who throws the prettier ball, I think nobody throws a prettier ball than Tua. But if you're asking me who I want as my quarterback, I want Mac Jones, and that's not even a slide on Tua. I'm really high on Mac Jones.
How about this? I'll ask you this, and then I'll answer it too. If you had one quarterback to start your team with, who would it be?
I'm still taking Mac. I like what he brings to the table. I don't buy this whole you have to be a dual threat guy. I like what he has just from an ability to break down a defense. I think he's sound. I think he's, built sturdier than Tua, that he can, sustain more hits than Tua. And I think, he can make the throws he needs to make. Is it going to be always as pretty as Tua? No, but I'm taking Mac for, the all of the above kind of all put in together. I think he's the better of the two.
All right, we got one for Mac. Trey?
Yeah, I'm gonna start by phoning a friend here, C-Roll W Tide, in the comments. If you look at it, they both played incredible seasons here, but Mac's season was healthy. Tua is a better quarterback. This is what C-Roll W Tide is saying. I think Tua is a better quarterback, but Mac had the greatest season, and I agree with that all the way. I think Tua, at the end of the day, just brings more to the table. The abilities outside of the pocket, the vision when he has, three guys chasing after him, he's 5 foot whatever, turns around and some of the throws he would make outside of the pocket were just jaw dropping. I think the arm strength is comparable for both. I think Tua probably, does a little bit better of a job leading receivers. We didn't see as many type plays, though, over the middle of this season. We didn't see as many, dump offs or plays like that this season. We saw a lot more of the deep ball, and that allowed Mac to showcase his arm and everything else. I'm with you. I think Mac is great. I don't want to take away from Mac. I think he is one of the best quarterbacks to ever play here, and he had the greatest season a quarterback has ever had here. But I don't think he was the best quarterback to play here. I'm sorry. And if
somebody pointed out, C-Roll pointed out that Tua was one high ankle sprain away from winning the Heisman. I'm going to make an argument that Mac is Jalen Waddle's injury away from winning a Heisman, because I think if Jalen Waddle
that's dominoes at that point. Things need to happen.
He doesn't get injured. I think Mac Jones wins the Heisman. So I think you can make that the injury claim both ways.
Healthy Tua, I don't think it's close. I'm just gonna say it. I think healthy Tua, he was just so naturally gifted, and then he got here and got this coaching program and this weight program and dietitians and everything else, and it took him to the next level. I think Tua hasn't really been given a fair shot in the NFL yet either, to be honest. I don't think his style of play is lined up with the system that they were trying to run with in Miami last year. I think bigger, better things are going to come for both athletes, and both are going to be great NFL quarterbacks. But when we're talking about who would I rather have, who is better here, give me Tua Tagovailoa. Sorry.
All right, it's 1-1 now. Time for the tiebreaker here. Uh-oh. That means that my vote is the winning vote. Look, when you watched Mac play quarterback last year, it was concerning. He looked kind of scared back there. The Tennessee game, he came in and it wasn't a lot of confidence. I mean, it wasn't like watching Tua come off the bench against Georgia. But then, as the season went on, I still think that, that those mistakes that cost the Iron Bowl were his fault. I didn't think that I thought that he threw the ball behind the running back and it was batted away. And I came into the season not a Mac fan. And then all of a sudden I saw him play and I'm like, hey, wait a second. This guy's bigger, stronger. He's ready to go. He's ready to lead. Love the touch on the deep ball. And I also loved when he was in trouble, he would just throw the ball down, like instead of taking the sack or like getting hurt, like running around. So, I mean, like nothing but respect. And remember, I said that if I had a Heisman vote, I would have given it to him over Smitty, even though I love Smitty. I just felt like Mac had that type of year. But with that said, look, see that right there? That's from Hawaii.
Yeah.
Mac's great, but Tua is my favorite player ever. And let me tell you why. Like no one goes down the field like Tua. He's a surgeon. And I think you're right, Trey, when you said everybody just forgot about how good Tua was because he's not here, like he left it on the field. So did Mac. I mean, he got hurt. Tua could have been a lot smarter with the football, but I've never seen anyone throw the ball like he does. Like, I don't even know if he knows what he's doing. He just does it, right? He rolls out. He's always still looking for a play. The championship win over Georgia is still the most amazing moment ever. I think they're both great. And if Tua doesn't have the hip injury, his football season would have been way better this year. But the fact that the guy's come back like he has, I still think that he's going to be an excellent, excellent football player. I was watching the game against Tennessee when Tua was quarterbacking at Alabama, and I'm watching like the deep balls that he's throwing with accuracy. Like he's just like tearing those guys up. Like they're in the right coverage, but they just can't defend him, right? They can't defend the pass. The offensive line should have won the Heisman for Alabama this year. And I feel like if Tua would have had that offensive line, then he would have done some great stuff. So she sits on my desk. I got her in Hawaii. I went over there with Bama basketball to broadcast years ago, and I'm going with Tua in a very, very tight race, Tony. Very tight.
Yeah.
No. You can't say that nobody goes down the field like Tua when Max set the NCAA record for completion percentage. How many times do we see Mac rip off like 15 to 20 straight completions during a game?
Sign of the
he can complete deep balls. I think you're selling Mac short, man. Like
it's nothing against Mac. If
Tua doesn't get injured, well, he did get injured, and Mac didn't get injured. I mean, I think you got to look at these things. I don't want to down Tua. I'm not anti Tua by any means, but let's not forget Max set NCAA records. NCAA best to ever do it in a season records in completion percentage and quarterback efficiency rating. So, and he didn't have as many weapons as Tua did. You talk about the offensive line. That the offensive line was still there last year. You know,
but it wasn't like this year. This year, and look,
yeah, but he didn't have. You know, Mac didn't have Judy and Ruggs to go along with Waddle and Smith. And to be honest with you, he didn't have Waddle for most of the season, so he did it with, you know, Devontae Smith and John Mechie, and then Slade
Bolden did it with Najee playing different level.
Najee was there, and they had a whole bunch of running backs.
But Steve Sarkisian
this year.
He didn't have Josh Jacobs, you know.
He didn't have Josh Jacobs. He didn't have Steve Sarkisian either, though. And I think the way that Steve Sarkisian drew up this offense, you know, you could offer that scheme to any quarterback recruit in the history of the game, and they would come play for it because it lends to the padded stats and the insane completion percentages. And
well, I mean, Tua had Steve.
He did, but
he completed 77% of his passes.
It was a much different style of offense, and Tua was doing things, you know, that Mac just wouldn't be able to do. I don't think Mac could get out of the pocket and still, you know, be cool under pressure like Tua was. Different situations, different schedules. Everything's a lot different. It's, you know, much different players too. If we think about it, it's like trying to compare Ben Simmons to Steph Curry. They play the same position, but it's just a different style. So it's a hard argument. But you know, I just at the end of the day, I think Tua Tagovailoa healthy, and you know, the injury does come into play here. But I think healthy Tua is just leaps and bounds ahead of any quarterback. Not maybe leaps and bounds, but it is ahead of any quarterback this university's seen.
I'm just saying, same offense. Tua Tagovailoa, 2019, 71.4% completion rating. Mac Jones, 77.4, so 6 percentage points higher than Tua. Same offense, less receivers.
6 percentage points, no.
You guys are missing the big thing. First off, thank you, Jersey Dolphins, for hooking up the super chat, and we love the super chats here. But you got to remember this too, and I mean, like, don't underscore the fact that Mac really didn't go into full stadiums. I mean, like, Tua played, you know, where it was giant crowds and really loud. I mean, this year, and that goes for all the teams this year. I mean, it was just such a different deal when you go on the road and it's just so quiet. You know, I mean, I think that sports are a lot different without fans.
I can see that, but I mean, it's not like Mac was better in big games than Tua was. If you're gonna go like the big game and handling pressure.
What are we saying? I mean, yes, to an extent, but I mean the teams were a lot different. Alabama was favored to win every game they played this year. Alabama wasn't a favorite in that LSU game last year, and Tua was hurt. So I think you got to take the context into play with some of these.
Right.
Mac, you got to look at the Clemson game too, though. I mean, like
the Clemson game, yes, that's the best argument I think you can make. Tua looked terrible in that game. He was set up for failure and he failed. But outside of that, it's a tough argument with the big game.
I still take Tua, but it's tight. Look, what's going on now? And as you guys hang out with us tonight, thumbs up, subscribe, the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Make sure you're part of it. Over 50,000 as we head to 100,000. Good to see you, Kimberly, and everyone that's hanging out with us tonight in the comments section with Tony Tsoukalas and Trey Yanity. I'm Mick Gillispie, Monday night quarterback. Guys, we got the draft coming up. And to me, the undisputed king of handicapping and breaking down the draft, the guy that's been doing it the longest, is Mel Kiper Jr. And Tony, and you can read his column on BamaInsider.com. Just do it after we go off the air, talking about Mac Jones, who his receivers, they're trying to help him get paid. They're talking about how great he is, and his draft status, according to Mel Kiper, just keeps getting better and better, Tony.
Yeah, Mel Kiper today said that he doesn't see Mac Jones slipping past the Patriots at 15. And you can kind of see that. I think that he's played himself into a possible top 10 pick. I do think that people are kind of hung up on having a dual threat quarterback. And when you look at some of the other quarterbacks in there, I mean, you've got a really good quarterback class. I mean, I'm not trying to put Mac Jones over Trevor Lawrence. Me personally, I think he's right up there with Zach Wilson in terms of who I would pick as the second quarterback I'd want in this draft. But I get the going with Wilson instead. I understand that. And then there's people that are really high on Fields. But I think you could maybe make the argument that Mac Jones would go ahead of Trey Lance. And I think that could, if he's that fourth quarterback, I think you could really see him get inside the top 10. So you look at, some of the things that, Mac can't run the ball or can't move the ball with his feet. Like, a lot of those guys are, every one of those guys I just named. But I think when you look at some of the things that maybe you're concerned about Mac, where you're looking at that small sample size as a starter, well, Lance doesn't have that either. So I think especially in a COVID year, when you're looking at, you got to maybe take coach's word for it and stuff like that. I think Nick Saban could really help out Mac Jones as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if he creeps into that top 10. Mel said that the Patriots have 15. I am getting to the point where I don't think the Patriots he'll be there for the Patriots at 15.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't have a lot of speed. I mean, he's not a dual threat guy, but he's got mobility enough to stay away from the pass rush. And I mean, for that style of quarterback, I mean, he definitely looks the part to me.
Yeah, I mean, look, we just watched the Super Bowl where a pocket passer won. The best quarterback to ever play football is a pocket passer. It's Tom Brady. Now, am I saying that Mac Jones is Tom Brady? Of course not. Nobody's Tom Brady, but there are some of the qualities that you like in Tom Brady. You can see them in Mac Jones. And who knows? I think really when you look at it from, is Mac going to work in the NFL? I do think you need to put him in a good system. I think there is a maybe higher bust potential with Mac Jones than there might be with other quarterbacks, just because I think that if you put him on with an offensive line that's horrid and he doesn't have a lot of weapons, I mean, he can't, do as much with his feet. So if you set him up like that with failure, I think maybe, then he does become a bust. But I think if you give him a quality system and put some pieces around him, I think he can be just as good or better than a lot of these quarterbacks. I think he's probably got a higher ceiling. He just might have a lower floor than maybe some of these guys as well.
What are the things that can come into play between now and draft day that could, make Mac go down or make Mac go up? I mean, I feel like he couldn't possibly go up anymore, right? I mean, if we're saying that he's going to be in the top 10 somewhere. I
struggle to see him going any higher than like 7 or 8. I don't think he's going to go above. I think he's going to be the fourth quarterback taken. I think people are going to they're going to really like the dual threat, especially from, Trevor Lawrence, from Zach Wilson, from Justin Fields. And I think you're not going to see Mac go above that, but who knows? I mean, maybe he could go 7, he could go 8 to the Panthers. The Panthers really liked him and they got to see him at the Senior Bowl. So that's something that, you got to look at. Might make sense at that number 8 pick. I really would pick Mac Jones over Trey Lance. I think he's going to go over Lance. So that opens up the door for the top 10. I don't see him really going past that 7 mark. And then like Mel said, I don't really see him dropping past the 15 mark. I think if you looked at it, let's just say like Justin Fields has a absolutely horrid pro day. None of these guys are going to have bad pro days though. But let's just say one of these guys has a bad pro day. Let's just say it's Justin Fields. If he was to just really drop down on people's things, then maybe you see Mac jump above him, and then you could maybe see him get into that, 6, 5, or the Bengals pick 5, but it's in that range of, lower in the top 10. I don't necessarily see that happening. So I'm going to say 7 or 8 is probably where he's going to be.
Trey, tell me a couple of scenarios where you see teams trading to get Mac, maybe teams that aren't in the top 15, but want a quarterback.
Yeah, I honestly don't see any. I think the teams that would draft him are in the right spots to draft him. We've been talking about it for a while now. The Saints down there, the Bears, the Steelers. I'm still under the impression he goes a little later. I do think the biggest change that's occurred for Mac Jones this offseason, he will go before Trey Lance now. There was some question. A lot of people thought that, Trey Lance is probably going to be the next guy taken there after Wilson. But I think it's going to be Mac Jones now. I think that's kind of the general consensus. But I don't think there's going to be any trading necessary. I think if we do see him in the top 10, Tony's spot on. It's going to be the Panthers. There's a lot of interest there. There's a lot of commonalities. It would make sense for him to be a Carolina Panther. a pretty big hole there at quarterback as well. So I could see that. If not, I think he is somewhere around 16, 17. We hear Mel Kiper saying he doesn't think he's going to fall out of 15. I don't think that's, you can bank on that quite yet. There's a lot of really talented players, a lot of really talented offensive linemen in this draft. I think in the teens is where we're going to see a lot of those guys go. And then, maybe Max somewhere in the mid to early teens. If not, I wouldn't be shocked if we saw him go 23rd. I think it's the Steelers or 25th, 24th, whatever it is, or somewhere around there. The Bears are right around there as well. And the Saints, all three would be really, sensible landing spots, sensible picks for those teams to take Mac Jones there. Or it would make just as much sense to go number 8. I don't think anybody's trading to get Mac Jones. If you want Mac Jones, you're going to have the chance to have him. That's the one thing about Mac Jones that you have to love more than everything else right now if you're an NFL team. He's got a lot of value and not a ton of, hype. He's got the hype, but he doesn't have more hype than Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields or Zach Wilson or even Trey Lance, in some of these projections. So you can get him pretty much wherever you want if you're one of these teams. You shouldn't have to trade for it. If a team does, though, I could see somebody trading to maybe get pick number 11, pick number 12. I think the Broncos have number 9. Maybe somebody would trade there to get that one, but I think the Broncos probably make that pick before a lot of teams too. So there's a wide variety of places he could go in the first round, but there's no doubt at this point he's going to be a first rounder, and probably in the top half of it.
I can see Washington. Look at just today during this show. The Cowboys locked up Dak Prescott for a record deal, and so they've got themselves a quarterback. The Eagles look like they're sticking with Jalen Hurts. Giants have Daniel Jones. I mean, like that's a winnable division where everybody seems to be set at quarterback, and Washington's a team that needs a quarterback. They're sitting there at 19, and I know you said that you think he can go in the 20s. I don't see Washington being able to get their quarterback at 19. They're a team that needs one. If there's a team that needs to trade up, I think that's something that that would be really advantageous. And then that puts in a situation where I think that division's so up for grabs, so might as well capitalize and try to get your guy. So I could see Washington maybe trading up. That makes sense to me. The Bears maybe as a team that would trade up. The Patriots are at 15, but they might be a team that would trade up. It just never seems to happen. They usually trade back instead of trading up.
You don't think they'll be able to get him there at that 15th pick, though?
I'm not sure they will, because here's the thing, right? So there is 5 quarterbacks, but I mean, after Mac, I think that the drop off from Mac to Kyle Trask is pretty dramatic, and so I think that you want to make sure you get your guy. Lawrence is going number 1. We don't really know what the Jets are going to do, but I think they're going to go quarterback. So let's say they go number 2. Regardless of what Carolina does with a Deshaun Watson trade, they'll probably go number 3. Denver might want. I think if the Panthers trade for Watson, I think that there's a chance that the Texans would pick quarterback at that spot. So that's 3. Then you're sitting there at 4 at Denver. You have the 4th guy. You got teams like San Francisco that might want one. So it drops off in a hurry. Let's say Denver picks a quarterback. You're at 4, and you know that there's a San Francisco and a New England sitting there at 12 and 15. There's a good chance that you're not going to get your quarterback if you're Washington, and I think, or if you're New England, and I think at that point you need to trade up.
They got Tom Brady in the 6th round. So the Patriots, I mean, we never really know what they're going to do. Although you would figure if, for both parties involved, if the Patriots got Mac Jones, they're going to love what they're getting. He would fit in so well. And for Mac, it'd be great to go there, even though you wouldn't be in the first 14 picks, right? I mean, financially, but at least you'd have a coach that's not going to let you get killed. You go to the Bears or some of these other places where they notoriously let their quarterbacks get hurt all the time. I mean, it's not going to be it's going to be miserable for you. So we'll see what happens. The NFL draft, I mean, your career, a lot of it depends on who picks you and the situation that you're being put in when you are a quarterback. And without someone blocking for you, as we saw this year, with someone blocking, you look a lot better than when you're on your backside.
Oh, all right, guys.
What's that?
From Mac's perspective, you definitely need it. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. His style. All right, guys, look, we've had a great time tonight. And before we say goodnight to everyone, Tony, start with you. What do you got going on? Then Trey, and then we'll wrap things up.
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously we got the SEC basketball tournament at the end of the week, so stay tuned for that. You're going to have all the SEC basketball awards come out this week as well. And then we're continuing our early enrollee spotlight series. We're kind of taking a look at all the new incoming players that are going to be or that are already on campus that you're going to get to kind of hear about for the first time this spring. So a lot of stuff on the, the site or the written part of the site to check out, moving forward this week.
Awesome. Trey?
Yeah, just another packed week. We got the sports continuing on. Everybody's in play still pretty much. And like Tony's saying, we got the SEC tournament getting rolling. I love this time of the year. Baseball is just starting to get cranking. We got spring training going on. We get the NCAA tournament coming in. College baseball is in full swing. So a lot of great stuff out right now. Guys, go hit the website, check out their articles, everything else. I'll have a couple more player spotlights coming out. We had one drop yesterday on Jace McClellan, so go check that out as well. I'll be out later in the week. I'm actually going with track and field to their NCAA championship. So I'll get some coverage on that. You guys can check out on my Twitter, whatever else. And, we'll keep the flow going here at BamaInsider. What about you, Mick? What you got going on this week?
Well, I know on the site tomorrow, it'll be Andrew Bone and Kyle Henderson. They call their show the A-Team. No, I'm just kidding. But they're going to be on tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Talking recruiting and anything else. And then Kyle and I will be on Wednesday night. So 6 o'clock, we'll have a show right back on here. And Sunday, we're going to get together. I know at least Kyle and I are. I don't know what the whole game plan is going to look like, but we'll be on for Selection Sunday, expecting Alabama to be at least a number 2 seed. So make plans to hang out with us as we go through that. And of course, for all of you that are hanging out, thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you being here. And for those that are listening to the podcast, if you like the fact that Alabama has beaten Auburn in every sport this year, give us a 5-star rating. Hey, thanks, guys. For Tony and Trey, I'm Mick.